Hi again, everyone. This is Minji at FSU. Really nice to see you again through this video, but I won't be talking for too long because this video is really to set the context for the next one that I'm asking you to watch, which is an interview with one of the most influential housing advocates in the state of Florida. I wanted you to go into that video as well as and the story of Florida with the broader context of the class in mind, but also thinking about how that story of Florida fits within the context of week 6, the week that we're in right now. And that's because in the two previous lectures, both Dr. Monkinen and I have pointed out how difficult it has been to actually get affordable housing built when we rely on state-imposed housing mandates, however strong that mandate may be. And so alternatively, this video and along with that interview will introduce an alternative approach to implementing housing goals, which is to create a dedicated source of revenue stream for state and local affordable housing programs. So we'll get to that, but before we do that, I want to set I want to introduce the statutory context in the state of Florida. So Dr. Monkinen has mentioned how has included Florida as one of the states that actually do require local governments to have what's called the housing element in their comprehensive plan. So by Florida statute, all local governments are required to adopt and update a comprehensive plan. And within that comprehensive plan, there has to be a housing element along with other required elements. But the housing element is special, or it differs because it is very prescriptive in comparison with the other required elements. The housing element is requires or local governments are required to which I guess I'll talk about the points that are most relevant for this class. Local governments are required to provide, for example, strategies for provision of adequate sites for affordable housing from very low income to moderate income families and mobile homes. And local governments are also required to provide strategies for how they're formulating their housing implementation programs. And they're also asked to provide strategies for creating and preserving affordable housing. So these are all fairly prescriptive expectations when it comes to what should be included in the comprehensive plan. But where the Florida's housing element approach falls short is that there's no specific number-based solution, as was the case in all the other states that we have covered so far. Examples of New Jersey, Massachusetts, and California. And all in those states, local governments are assumed to be responsible for a certain fair share of regional affordable housing needs. However, in Florida, there's no way of either calculating that regional affordable housing, the fair share of regional affordable housing needs, nor there has ever been any intent to sort of figure out what that share is for municipalities. So that's where the Florida's housing element approach really falls short in comparison with other states, specifically with California, as discussed in depth by Dr. Monkinen in the previous lecture. And also, the Florida's approach does not have an established practice for tracking municipal compliance as well as sanctions. So because comprehensive plans are required by the statute, all local governments do create comprehensive plans and update them, and there's a state review is an established state review process. But that established state review process does not necessarily look at the actual number of affordable housing that's in a municipality and compare it with their strategies. There's no such established practice. And most significantly, in 2011, the state oversight of comprehensive plans broadly have largely been repealed. So even that the previously existing state level oversight of comprehensive plans and municipal sort of compliance has further diminished in this context. So with that being said, I'll transition over to the Sadowski Housing Trust Fund. So the Sadowski Housing Trust Fund came together, or Sadowski Coalition came together in 1991, and the Sadowski Act was passed in 1992. And it is the goal of the act was to implement affordable housing goals, because the advocates, the coalition, saw the housing element as a mandate without any revenue, or without any sources of revenue sources to implement the mandate. So essentially, it is getting at the heart of the issue that we have seen repeatedly in examples that we discussed in this week. So the Sadowski Housing Trust Fund is the revenue source is from documentary stamps. So whenever a real estate is being sold and when that gets documented, 20% of that 20% goes to the Sadowski Housing Trust Fund. And that the fund is intended to be used 70% for the state housing initiative partnerships, which is a homeownership assistance for affordable housing, and then 30% for sale, the state apartment incentive loan, which is for rental housing developments. And it has been a fair an impactful program in the I'm sorry, it's been very impactful in advancing the state's affordable housing goals. So as a snapshot, this is an estimated impact of Sadowski housing funds in 2019 and 2020. And as you can see, the number of homes that will be created by the Sadowski Housing Trust Fund will be over 13,000 units. And obviously, this 13,000 units is a drop in the bucket. And when you look at the overall affordable housing shortages in the state of Florida, but it is a sizable, significant program that is annually, constantly producing similar number of affordable housing ever since 1992. So the Sadowski Housing Fund has gone through some challenges over the years, which will be covered in the interview, and it has also scored a somewhat of a victory in the latest during the latest legislative session. So the interview will go through or we'll discuss the challenges that it faced and how those were overcome, and how the recent legislative victory came about and what the implications are for the trust fund in moving forward. So that's what the interview will be about. But before you go into the interview, I want you to think about these questions as you watch the interview. So especially in relation to the changemaker videos that we saw at the beginning of the class. I want you to think about how the Florida's Sadowski Coalition's experience compare with the experiences shared by the change makers. Are there common elements of success for getting either a legislative bill or local ordinance through the state legislature or local council? Are there common challenges faced by these change makers? And then second, what are the limitations of state-imposed housing mandates? And this will be as discussed in this interview, as well as the two previous lectures. And I want you to think along the lines of the challenges of implementation, sustained monitoring, and especially the ever-changing politics and policies. By contrast, what are some of the benefits of a state-led approach? And this question will, or answers to these questions, responses to these questions will be particularly relevant as we discuss or as Dr. Monkanen will discuss the locally initiated zoning reform approach in the next lecture. In so the next one will be about locally initiated approach, and we've extensively discussed the state-led approach. So this is where this is a segue to think about a good point to think about the benefits and the drawbacks of the state-led approach as you go into the local ones. So with that being said, I will conclude this video and thank you so much for your attention. I hope you enjoyed the interview and I will see you in a couple weeks.